I'm Brooke, and today I'm with Jessyca, who's going to share with us her journey, her adventure on the carnivore diet. Hi, Jessyca.
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you are here, and thank you again for taking the time to share with us about how it's been for you.
It's so important that people know that there's hope. I'm one of those people that thought I was too far gone and had too many issues and that I was too old to heal. I'm 46 years old. And of course, I feel younger than I did 10 years ago. I kind of look younger than I did 10 years ago.
Yes.
But this wound up being the answer for me. And people need to know there is an answer and that there's never a point where it's too late.
That's very good news for lots of people. And it's true.
Yeah.
So what was your health like before carnivore, or even as you're going on to through this sort of way of healing with diet?
Yeah. Well, I my entire life from age 11 to age 41, I struggled with bulimia and anorexia and compulsive overeating. I'm about 5'10". At one point, I was 115 pounds. And at the point where I started to change and allowed food to heal me, I was 309. My blood pressure was through the roof, scary high, like risk of stroke any second. I had bladder disease, interstitial cystitis, which is supposedly you can't not have meds for that. And I don't take meds for it anymore. And I had a whole host of psychiatric issues. I was diagnosed with bipolar. I was diagnosed with agoraphobia, meaning I didn't leave the house really for about 5 years. I didn't leave the house. And I also had OCD and some other issues. And in fact, I had taken so many meds. I was on 17 pills a day. I had taken so many meds that the doctor said, we don't even have anything else to give you. What we need to do is electric shock therapy.
Oh, no.
And I didn't even know that was still a thing. But when you're at a point of brokenness to that point, I agreed to it. And it was a huge mistake. It left me with a traumatic brain injury. I literally had to rebuild, learning to write my name and everything. I did that had 12 sessions of that. So when you say where was my life, where was I? 5 years ago, I was near death. I mean, I do not believe that I would be here had I not found this solution. And I'm so grateful. And I tell everybody, which is why I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. How did you hear about it?
Well, it's interesting. So like I said, I kind of withdrew from the world and I didn't even go outside. It wasn't a matter of not socializing. I wouldn't go outside. I was very, very ill. And I also wasn't on social media anymore. And my husband, at some point, my health got so bad that he basically insisted, because I wouldn't go to the doctor. He insisted that I get my blood pressure taken. And when I went and did that, there was something about seeing it on the thing, on the register thing. And it showed, it was up at the top and it said extreme risk for heart attack and stroke. And it's like, I knew that. But in that moment, I started to all of a sudden think about all the things that I was going to miss if I died. And it suddenly mattered to me. Mm-hmm. So my husband said, I'm going to go online and find you some support groups. And you have to reactivate. You have to come back to Facebook. And he found some different keto groups. And I started off with a ketogenic diet. Ketogenic Success was the page that I was on. And I did have a lot of success. That way of eating, I lost weight. I healed a lot of issues. I was able to get off meds, and I still didn't feel 100%. I felt like I was almost there, but I wasn't there. I still had some severe gut issues. As part of my bulimia, I was taking a ton of laxatives. Like I would take 77 laxatives a day just to purge my body. And I did that for years. And so my gut, as you can imagine, was just completely destroyed. And keto didn't fix that for me. I still had terrible, terrible troubles. And the doctor's like, well, it's just going to be this way. And so, I heard about carnivore. I went to the carnivore conference in 2018.
In Colorado.
In Colorado, I was there, and I got really inspired. I went because I was interested anyway, and I've always been meat heavy in my diet, but I went to that in Colorado, and I was really inspired. And of course, Dr. Baker was there, and the science convinced me. It isn't just the stories. I mean, stories are great, but the science convinced me. There was a part about gut health and intestinal permeability, basically leaky gut. And it was explained how, lectins and oxalates and how these things get into our bloodstream. And I thought, I think I'm going to give this a serious go. That was 2018. So I went carnivore-ish. I would take periods of time. I would go and be totally carnivore for a month. And even then, after that, I didn't add much else in. I would add in maybe a salad here or there, maybe some olives or avocado. But this year, 2000, I decided to see what would happen if I really lived what I believed is optimally based on the science that I had read. And for me, that meant eliminating everything except for what I need. And that would be fatty meat and salt.
Great. And
so I am I can't tell you how amazing life is.
So for 220, you've been straight on simple carnivore.
Yes.
And so you let go of the rest of those plants.
I let go of seasonings other than salt. Yeah. I said what my experiment was, I want to see if my body truly changes significantly. I already ate very healthy. I never ever cheated. I ate keto, but I wanted to experiment, and I decided I was going to experiment for 45 days. And then I had read somewhere that, and I am a constant student of this. I read everything and get my hands on, because I do need the science too to convince me. But I read that it really sometimes takes 90 days for our gut flora to change and to get used to eating a different way. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it 90 days. 90 days.
And it sounds like you had autoimmune conditions. So that does take quite a while, I think, for the body to sort of let go of some of that stuff that's been hanging on.
And the difference was, it's funny because, again, I'd already lost significant weight. I did lose some more, but I went down a size. And I was like, I was fine where I was. I just looked way better. And people started to say, did you get something done to your skin? I mean, I heard that all the time. They're like, why do you look younger? And I'm like, my dermatologist asked me if I got something done to my skin. I'm like, no, if I had, it would have been you who did it. I've never felt as good as I feel right now at 46, ever. Never in my life.
And what are you eating right now? What are you eating these days?
Beef and salt. Every once in a while, some butter, and every once in a while, salmon, if we run out of beef, and that's what's here. But generally, it's super easy. And as someone who's like formerly food obsessed, because I think, I worked through that and have healed from that, but to just keep it that simple and not be thinking about what am I going to eat later? What's it going to be? There's no food fantasy. And I have to tell you, every day, because my hunger full reflexes are restored, those hormones are fixed now. I sit down and I eat a steak, or I eat a hamburger, or I eat a bowl of beef, and I'm like, oh, this is so good. It never gets old because it's exactly what I need to nourish me,
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. I never would have imagined.
I know, when you get hungry, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, that's real hunger. When we are like craving, I tell people this. They're like, I don't know when I'm really hungry. And I say, would a bowl of beef satisfy you right now? And they're like, no, I want something crunchy or whatever. And I'm like, that's not real hunger. That's an emotional event. You're trying to soothe, or you're trying to, have a mouth party. Real hunger is grateful for a bowl of beef, and you appreciate it. I don't care how many times you've had it. So it's amazing. It has helped so much with my eating disorder, and I'm in recovery from that, and I don't take meds. And I also had chronic migraine. I forgot to say that. I had chronic migraine. It was so bad that I had to always have shots with me to give myself. Some people get so bad they have to go to the hospital and get a shot occasionally. I had to be prescribed them to give myself because they were just so frequent.
What is the shot that they give for migraine?
It's like a mixture. It's I think a painkiller and then something else that constricts the blood vessels. But like I think the painkiller is like Toradol, and then it's heavy. It knocks you out, which for someone who wasn't participating in life anyway wasn't a big deal. But
I have to ask, when you were keto, you were drinking coffee? Were you drinking coffee?
I was in the beginning. It's interesting, as I guess I've been on this trail towards optimal. And so in the beginning I drank coffee, and I was so afraid if I gave it up, it was the caffeine. I'm like, am I going to have headaches? Am I going to have energy? And I quit it, and I had no issues. And I'm like, oh, ketones do what coffee used to do for me. I don't drink it. And when people find out I don't drink coffee, they're like, where do you get your energy from? I'm like, you know what? I am a walking source of energy. As long as I have fat on my body, then I have energy. And so it's really fascinating. I think a lot of people have a mental addiction to coffee, or they're afraid to try life without it because of what might happen. So yeah, I don't drink coffee. I drink water.
It sounds great. Now, do you eat other meats besides beef?
Occasionally. I prefer beef. Mm-hmm. If I have the choice, I'm going to have beef. Again, I don't see a lot of, I don't think the chicken is as nutrient dense, and I'm very interested in optimal. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Like if I think about like, what am I getting out of what I'm eating? What food is nourishing me the most? Then that's just not a good option for me. So,
I can completely understand that. It's almost like, well, okay, I'm kind of late to this party. I want to make every meal count.
It is. And if I feel the best eating this, what would be the point in compromising? Because I want to, like, why would I want to feel less than the best? It just doesn't make sense. So, yes.
So did you stop eating eggs when you started a simple carnivore diet, or did you still eat them sometimes, or you?
I think I ate a couple at first. I just am not drawn to them much anymore. I don't have an issue with them. I just don't feel like, again, it's nutrient density. I don't feel like they power me the same way that red meat does.
Mm-hmm. And salt, what's your situation with salt or electrolytes?
I use salt. Yeah, I do. I don't drink salty water or anything like that. I just take pinches of it, or heavily, heavily salt meat, and that's it. I don't take supplements like a lot of people take magnesium and all these other things, and I don't have issues. So.
And do you eat organ meat?
Occasionally. I am open to organ meat. It is not my favorite thing in the world. But I'm one of those people, I would try any organ. So yeah, sometimes, but it's not my choice. My choice is red meat. Yeah.
Okay, this is not a regular thing, but sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's pretty much meat and salt. And it sounded like you're doing ground beef as well as steaks from what you said.
Ground beef, hamburger, steak. That's like my regimen. And I'm telling you, when you're really hungry, you don't get tired of it. It's only when you're trying to have food do something else for you. And if you're like, oh, I'm not in the mood for beef, wait till you are. Yes. That's the answer. Wait till you are. I don't know if I said this. Altogether, I've lost 145 pounds.
That's amazing.
Also, I forget to talk about the weight because I think the changes in my health are so compelling that I forget. Oh yeah, I'm also half my size.
Lost a person. 140 pounds. You lost a person.
Yeah, 145 pounds, and I can stand inside one leg of the jeans that I used to wear, and
Oh, that's
all
fantastic.
stuff too. But it's interesting because when a lot of times you start a diet, because it's all about the weight loss, and I never imagined that 5 years later that would be the last thing. Oh yeah, I also lost weight, because it has been so life changing. That's the last thing. Like, oh yeah, I lost weight. You might want to hear about that. It's so much more compelling to me that I have regained my mental health. I've recovered from, electric shock therapy. A 31-year eating disorder is recovered. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. And oh yes, I also lost weight.
That's amazing. What do your physicians say? I mean, you were on all those medications. They must have something to say about this.
Well, I had some that did not agree with getting off of them, but I had one who did, and he agreed to help me. And I did do it slowly with his help. And I think he was skeptical, but now he's not. um, it's interesting. I think most of the medical world has not caught up to this yet at all. I know I wouldn't say when I first lost weight and I was on keto, I wouldn't go in and say, "Oh, I ate keto," because I already knew from other people that my doctor would be like, "Oh, that's not good for you." My mother went to the same doctor and she said it. He said, "That's not good for you." So I went in there and he said, "What do you eat?" And I said, "Well, I eat healthy, clean protein. I eat very little carbs. If I do have carbs, they're from green leafy vegetables. And all my fat sources are natural and healthy." And he's like, "That sounds great." So I described it. I just didn't call it anything. And I think that's why it's so important. Like, people ask, what do I eat? And I don't have to label it. I just say, I eat really good, clean, whole food.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. Just eating real food.
I have to ask, I know that cystitis is a very painful thing, interstitial
Yes.
cystitis. And I also understand that keto doesn't really help it that much because you're still using so many inflammatory vegetables. What was your experience with it, with dealing with that? I think your camera froze. Darn. There you go. There, you're back.
Sorry, it glitched there for a second.
Yeah.
I think you were saying that you asked about the interstitial cystitis, which is horribly painful. Most people that have it, they feel like they have a constant kidney or bladder infection. Oh my gosh, I also had countless kidney stones prior. I used to have them all the time. In my 20s, I had them regularly. I was a vegetarian for 14 years. And now, knowing what I know about how kidney stones are formed, I'm like, of course, if there's anything I could have done to make that hereditary condition worse, I did, because I ate all the oxalates. But
yeah. So my question was about the ketogenic diet when you're dealing with cystitis. What was your experience? Because as I understand, it doesn't really help that situation because you're still using so many plants. Oh, no.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Even on keto, I never been a big vegetable person.
Oh.
I just never have. Like, I've never liked them. Even when I was a child, I can remember choosing, like, I want to eat the meat. I didn't want to eat vegetables. So I almost think that's this naturally wired thing in me. So I had a lot of success in keto because even doing keto, I generally tried to keep carbs under 10. Like really, really, really low carb. So I did very low carb keto. So heavy meat based, fat based anyway. And I think the one exception would be mostly avocado, once in a blue moon, a salad, but it just wasn't a big part of my life anyway. And so I guess that's why I said it was carnivore-ish. And it transitioned to just full blown carnivore. I just don't see the need for any of those things anymore. If I got better and better. So I did have improvement with that, but it absolutely could be because I don't have kidney stones anymore at all. I used to get one like every 3 months. I did still have them on keto for a while. I think they formed before I was keto, but I was still passing them. But I have not had one I think the last one was 2017. So yeah, I mean, that's been my entire life. That is a hereditary issue. And it's just amazing, and people are like, doesn't protein cause kidney stones? I'm like, no, actually it's your plants.
Your oxalates and things. And, it sounds like you're meat-based keto. I mean, keto is such a broad term. I mean, I know
it really is. It really is.
They just eat fat bombs. They just eat coconut desserts all the time.
No. I would say I have always been optimal keto. Yeah. Since, I mean, the first year you kind of figure that stuff out. Like, I mean, if I'm eating almond flour, I still feel inflamed. Yeah. I know it's not wheat. I know it's not as bad as wheat, but I still feel puffy and it's not doing what I need it to do. So you learn over time, I think, if you are someone who experiments. I think experimentation keeps it interesting because people are like, how are you still interested and excited about this after 5 years and I haven't eaten a bite of sugar or grains or anything like that? And I'm like, because of experimenting. Absolutely. It's fascinating to figure out how your body responds to things. And I always did that. And when I always faced the fact, I'm like, you know what? This thing tastes good to me. It makes it more interesting, but it causes me inflammation. I'm willing to give it up.
So then let me ask, with bringing that in mind, what's your fat experimentation? How have you fooled around? Have you fooled around with different amounts of fat percentages?
Absolutely. I would say, and I don't know how popular this is, it's just the truth. I would say I'm high fat carnivore. I find that the higher fat helps with my brain. I don't, fat's pretty easily converted to ketones. And so I've experimented. I've experimented, like, how much meat do I have to eat to feel totally full versus how much meat and butter. And I feel a great sense of, it's not fullness, but satiation. Of course, I mostly eat fatty meat. If I eat salmon or something like that, it's got to be covered in butter, lots of it, because it doesn't give me what I need. But like ribeyes are in really fatty hamburger. I mean, they already have everything they need.
Yeah. And so when if you decide that to add fat, you use butter, or do you use suet or pieces of fat trim, or what do you use?
All the above.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. So, as long as it's from an animal, and then I'm pretty good with it.
Very good.
As a fat source. It
sounds perfect, actually. It sounds what you're doing is perfect. And I'm so happy that it's working for you so well. And I just need to ask, because everything is going so well for you, and how was your sleep?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
There was a point in the journey where I realized that good sleep and stress management were as important as my diet. Yeah. And so I was on Ambien to sleep for years. I think you're supposed to take it short term, but I took it maybe 20 years. Wow. And so when I stopped taking that, it was bad. I couldn't sleep. And now, it's like my internal clock is reset, the circadian rhythm's back maybe, but I wake up early at the same time every day, and I get sleepy and I go to bed early. I don't stay up late, which may not sound like fun, but it's perfect for me.
It's just so fantastic, Jessyca.
It's like a reset. It's like my body reset to what it was before I did the damage from the disordered eating. And that is just an amazing thing. And like I said, when I started, I thought that was impossible. But I like to tell people, because it's not. It doesn't matter how sick you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how long you've done the things you've done. Meat can heal you.
It heals. Meat heals. It truly heals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story on Meat RX.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I love the opportunity to share.
Yeah, I think it'll be an inspiration for a lot of people that are struggling with some of the things, just some of the things that you were struggling with. So thanks again.
My pleasure.